want to unite the Negro race in this country. We want every Negro to work for one common object, that of building a nation of his own on the great continent of Africa, for the purpose of bettering our industrial, commercial, educational, social and political conditions.
Welcome to Owen Allen Media. Historic justice for Marcus Garvey and a legal battle involving Clansman leader Tesha Miller. If you are new to the channel, welcome and make sure to subscribe to get all our latest videos. Like this video, 1 like for every years they took to pardon Jamaica's national hero. Alright, so President Joe Biden made history by pardoning 5 individuals on Sunday, including Marcus Garvey, Jamaica's national hero and a pivotal figure in black history. So Marcus Garvey, who passed away in 1940, was convicted of mail fraud in 1923 and sentenced to 5 years in prison, a sentence later commuted by President Calvin Coolidge in 1927. Marcus Garvey is a celebrated pioneer who organized a mass movement among African Americans, founded the Black Star Line Shipping Company, and established the Universal Negro Improvement Association, prompting Pan-Africanism and black empowerment. So for decades, advocates, including Marcus Garvey's son, argued that the charges against his father were politically motivated. So today, Marcus Garvey pardon signifies a long overdue acknowledgement of his contribution to civil rights and racial injustice. So for Black Americans and Jamaicans, this pardon is deeply symbolic because it acknowledges Marcus Garvey's fight against systemic racism and validates his effort to uplift the global black community. So many Jamaicans, including myself, view this as a rectification of historical injustice against our national hero, while African Americans are reminded of Marcus Garvey's foundational role in black liberation movement, inspiring leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. So the pardon shows the importance of recognizing and correcting injustice, especially against those who shape the fight for equality. And it makes me wonder why it took this long. It shows me that some leaders do not have good leadership and the courage to do what it takes, right? Former President Barack Obama, the first black president, missed the opportunity to pardon Marcus Garvey despite being positioned as a symbol, I should say, of hope and change. So while Obama made significant strides in addressing racial inequalities, Barack Obama's reluctance to tackle polarizing issues like this shows a cautious approach, right? I am surprised it has to be Joe Biden, one of the slave master's son, right? So here's a clip of Marcus Garvey's son interview begging President Barack Obama to pardon his father then.
I think my father's legacy extends beyond civil rights in America. I think it's a human rights legacy because he was fighting for African people all over the globe. And his message was, up united people, you can accomplish what you will. And it was one of self-sufficiency and self-determination.
With time winding down on the Obama administration, Dr. Julius Garvey is seeking a posthumous pardon for his father, civil rights icon Marcus Garvey.
The idea of empowering a people, why in your father's era was that so dangerous?
Well, it was dangerous because it was upsetting the apple cart. His mission was to create a United States of Africa, so that what he was building was a nation in exile.
In 1923, a federal court convicted Garvey of mail fraud and deported him from the United States. Garvey's supporters argue the evidence was falsified and the charge politically motivated.
This guilty verdict, it was obvious. It was the persecution of one of the first major black leaders in the United States. I mean, this is the man that Martin Luther King said was responsible for bringing dignity and consciousness to black people in the United States of America. So this was really he was the first political lynching out of a slew of political lynchings that came down the line. Dr. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, black leaders who fought for the rights of black people in the African diaspora.
It left a stain on my father. I had to grow up with this idea of my father having been imprisoned in the United States. And, your initial understanding of the United States of America is that there's this wonderful flowering democracy, the best government in the world, and, the justice for everyone. And here you have a father who was a criminal, then he must have been a criminal, until you get to understand the dynamics of the racism that's built into the system. And that's where we are today. That's where I have come to in terms of my own realization that it's the system. It wasn't my dad. My dad was a courageous human being who devoted his whole life to human rights.
When you think about this fight and the idea that we're in the last days of President Obama's presidency, what are you hoping?
Well, we stand on the shoulders of those who have gone before, and he was the progenitor of the civil rights movement here, the human rights movement across the world. I think this president has to understand that he is standing on the shoulders of those who have gone before in terms of the civil rights struggle, and understand that this in itself is important to his own legacy.
What would a posthumous pardon of your father mean for you and your family?
Well, I think it's bigger than that in terms of me and my family. I think what does it mean for African people, and I think what does it mean for African Americans, even more so. It's only here in the United States that Marcus Garvey is still post-criminalized. And I think what it would mean is the lifting of this stain on his name so that African Americans can feel free, as we do outside of the continent of America, free to recognize him as an ideal for which and towards which they can strive.
Tesha Miller, the alleged leader of the Clansman Gang, is suing the Jamaican government alongside 15 other inmates over alleged breaches of their constitutional rights at the Tower Street Adult Correctional Center, represented by attorney John Clark, who also served Vybz Kartel in his appeal. Tesha Miller and the other plaintiffs filed a lawsuit on December 4, 2024, naming the prison superintendent and the National Security Minister and the Attorney General as defendants. Now, the inmates claim violations of their rights to equal treatment, family communication, and legal representation. So they argue that a 2-year visitation ban and the imposition of no visit days in November 2024 infringed their rights, leaving families uninformed and disconnected. And also they allege inadequate facilities and lax rules for a legal visit when hindered their ability to prepare for defense cases. So the plaintiffs also highlights the prison deteriorating condition and challenge section 31.3 of the Judicature Act, which governs when sentencings begin for those awaiting appeal outcomes. They argue that appellants like Tesha Miller, who is appealing a murder conviction, should not be treated the same as convicted prisoners serving sentences. So Tesha Miller and others are also facing charges under the anti-gang law for alleged involvement in the Clansman Gang Tesha faction linked to crimes such as murder and firearm possession between 2017 and 2022. Now, the lawsuit seeks 11 declaration damages and reforms aiming to hold the state accountable for what the inmates describe as breaches of their fundamental human, statutory, and constitutional rights. So let me know what you think about that in the comment section, and also let me know what you think about the Marcus Garvey being pardoned by Joe Biden, and it had to be Joe Biden instead of Barack Obama when he was in office. Leave your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks for watching. Owen Allen Media, keep you informed.